It's kind of like a baseball player being enshrined into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. One of our own was just honored into what's known as the Emmy Awards Silver Circle, honoring his 46 years in the TV news business. I saved a KSLA News 12 a ton of gas money this week. Didn't have to drive anywhere to find tonight's good stuff. He has a cubicle about 15 feet from mine, and we call him Mr. Semmie.
The thing that they all share is that they're among the very best.
How rare is that to have somebody at that position doing what he does so well for that stretch of time?
I think it is very rare in this industry, especially, nowadays.
It's hard to believe. I guess I've known Semmie for almost 45 years now. I think he deserves all the recognition he can get. The universe doesn't turn out too many Semmie Buffins.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
Oh, man, good to see you.
I worked with a lot of talented people in the years that I was in broadcast journalism. I never worked with anybody more talented, more dedicated, more professional than Semmie Buffin.
All right, Jan, let's go.
Let's go.
It's a walk and sometimes sprint, depending on the news, that Semmie Buffin has taken multiple times a day across this newsroom floor, headed to his news unit with camera and equipment out the same door he first walked in for the first time 46 years ago.
When he walked in the door the first time, he was just a skinny kid with a big head of hair. Let's see. It was probably a good 3 inches.
Mike Staggs is a former KSLA reporter and news director during the 70s and 80s.
It was about like this. It was a good head of hair.
There's a lot of things Semmie is remembered for. His groovy 70s hair notwithstanding.
Oh, that bald head.
Where'd that hair go? Where'd all that hair go?
It's there. Ponytail. You don't see it?
His sense of humor.
Man, Pop hair used to be like that. Pop hair was about that wide at one point in time.
And that boyish laugh and smile that hasn't changed one bit.
Like walking around, it was just flowing.
Still upbeat, still loving life.
Big fro. Big puffy fro.
Even while working in an industry that has been in constant change since the first time TV news hit the airwaves.
When Semmie came to work at Channel 12, we were transitioning from what was called film gathering news situation to a videotape, and then you've now transferred to digital. But Semmie was right there in the forefront. He caught on very quickly. He was part of that.
And as the technology advanced and the demands and expectations on reporters and photographers increased, some couldn't dart out that door for good fast enough. Yet Mr. Semmie's passion only continued to grow.
The broadcast industry is changing, and it has changed over the years. The folks that stay in it, those true professionals, the innovators, the pioneers who stay in it, like Semmie, truly are leading the way for not only the current generation, but the next generation of broadcaster.
So Semmie was one of the first people that I met when I came in here.
KSLA News Director Jane Rubin makes it a point to assign Mr. Semmie to many of those young, nervous newbies that may just be beginning their news careers.
He's a good one to pair with new employees, to show around town, show around the area.
We could spend countless moments detailing how Mr. Semmie knows how to operate a camera with more buttons on it than a cockpit of an airplane, or share the war stories this old equipment room locker could tell of the events covered and the famous people interviewed.
What he brings every day is he loves what he does.
But that's not who Mr. Semmie is.
Now, you have to love what you do. So, coming to work pretty much every day with a smile on his face and eager to tackle whatever the job is today.
Bragging and notoriety is not what Mr. Semmie is all about.
As you well know, the guy that gets in front of the camera is the guy that the public knows. But without Semmie and people like him, you wouldn't have a job. I mean, you'd be in radio.
Here's Semmie. Semmie's been working at KSLA News 12 since 1972. He says he'll babysit my kids anytime, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're laying it on pretty thick. But how in the world can you not?
Semmie is a good man. He's a father, he's a husband, he's a hard worker, he's a grandfather, he's a Christian.
I owe it to you and the rest of the guys. And when
I think we owe it to you.
Well, no, when I walked through that door, you were an archiver.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of mimic a lot of stuff off of you and archiver.
Typical Mr. Semmie, never accepting credit, just passing it on to others.
Sometimes reporters are put in a position where people don't like them. And Semmie learned early on that you got to make sure to protect your reporter.
And see them throwing bottles, rocks at the building.
Like during one of the city's toughest moments 30 years ago.
With Carl Penley.
Yeah.
He and I was out there covering the Cedar Grove riots, and people started tossing bricks and things at us, and I had to tell the guy, hey, look, you know, come on, let's settle down. We're not the enemy here. We're just here to do a story.
Or that story he was covering some 40 years ago with veteran reporter Ray Post.
It was crazy. And nobody wanted to interview with Ray because Ray asked the tough questions.
So there sat Mr. Semmie and Ray trying to catch the ever-evasive city official one day.
We hid in the bushes, behind a tree, behind a building.
Literally hid in the bushes.
Yes, we did. And waited till they come out.
When that city official spotted Mr. Semmie's film camera, it launched one of the most memorable moments of Semmie's early TV career.
Well, this guy ran from us that day. We chased him down Texas, in the alleyway, back up on Milam, and finally caught him. By the time we caught up with him, Ray was trying to ask the question. He was out of breath. The guy was trying to answer the question. He was out of breath.
They didn't get the interview, but they aired perhaps the first ever low-speed chase to be put on TV news.
And by the time we could understand what they were saying, I ran out of it.
And now, over 4 decades later, from hiding in bushes, being forced to wearing a tux.
And we quickly learned that we had quite a catch there because he was smart, he was capable, he was dependable.
Also, we could tell Mr. Semmie, thank you for 46 years doing what you do.
That's what you want as a news director. You want people who know what they're doing. If you have good people, you leave them alone. Let them do their job.
He is the man. Mr. Semmie gives all credit for getting into the news business to his wife. She worked at another station in town back in the early 70s, talked him into applying, says, got to get into this TV business. Soon after, he moved to KSLA, and the rest is Emmy Award-winning history.